We are welcoming back today a longtime friend of the show, Benjamin Dixon, host of the Benjamin Dixon Show, resident of the all-important state of Georgia. We are going to talk about what already happened in Georgia, what may happen on January 5th. Ben, it's so good to see you.
David, it's always good to see you and good to be back here sharing with your channel. Congratulations on the million subscribers. And
Oh,
you're
thank
a
you.
million one, million two now, right?
Well, listen, you're going to get there faster than I did. You're not there yet, but you're compressing my growth into less
I
time, I'm sure.
I certainly hope so, man, because it already feels like it's been forever. It's been like 6 years. So, but we're just still doing the work and excited about what's happening in Georgia.
Yeah, so I mean, let's just dive right into it. First of all, there were questions. Will Texas go red? I'm sorry, will Texas go blue? I never thought it would. What's going to happen in Florida? I thought it was kind of a question mark. I did not think Georgia was the most likely to go to Joe Biden, but it did. You followed it in a way that I didn't from outside of the state. Were you surprised?
Right. No, I wasn't. I was pleased. I was thoroughly pleased, but I knew the kind of work that was happening on the ground. I knew the type of registrations that were happening. New Georgia Project, which is affiliated with Stacey Abrams and a couple of other colleagues of mine. New Georgia Project registered 500,000 people of color alone in this cycle. And so with those kind of numbers and the type of targeted push that I saw on the ground, I suspected that Georgia would be blue. I just didn't want to jinx it. So I kept my fingers crossed.
So we've got these two Senate races and John Ossoff, David Perdue, there's no more debates there. I almost had to call Atlanta police and report a murder after that first debate with Ossoff and Perdue. I mean, that's one of the most brutal debates I've ever seen. And I understand why David Perdue's not debating. We had the Loeffler Warnock debate on Sunday, and she seemed to have a software malfunction where she was repeating the same five things over and over, including the word socialist and a radical leftist, radical liberal, Raphael Warnock. My instinct and my audience was, this is so transparent, but we don't necessarily understand the totality of the electorate in Georgia. Is that type of repetition actually something that could win you a Senate race in Georgia?
No, but what can win you a Senate race in Georgia is simply being complicit and part and parcel with the power structure that Kelly Loeffler represents and what she's trying to protect. So they don't care how incompetent she is. She's theirs. She's there. That's their senator. That's the person who they're going to vote for. I mean, they voted for Donald Trump, right? I know Joe Biden won, but there's still a lot of people in Georgia who support Trumpism. So do they support her malfunction? Because she did have a software malfunction, to be sure. No, they probably think she's bland as a Borg, but they're still going to vote for her.
And in terms of voting at all, and this is something that I am just fascinated by, on the one hand, early, it's rigged, Trump really won, etc., which would imply January 5th maybe is also rigged. And then you started seeing inklings of this, let's just boycott. Republicans boycott. If they're not going to count our votes anyway, let's just boycott, which of course is crazy because that will just hand the wins to the two Democratic candidates. But lately in Trump's rally, during the debate, you saw Loeffler say it. They're now focusing on the importance of getting out every vote. Do you think that this boycott movement will have any impact?
Well, I will say that the Republicans here in the state of Georgia are pretty much like the Republicans across the country. They're doing their best to hold it together while they figure out what the hell to do with Donald Trump. And that's happening in Georgia. So people don't really know. Republicans don't really know whether they are free to distance themselves from Donald Trump. Nobody is going to attack him, but they are afraid to distance themselves. And so there's kind of a kerfuffle, right? There's confusion, there's chaos, there's dissent in Georgia Republicans. We see some of them disagreeing with each other publicly. They're going in different directions in terms of strategy. I think they are collapsing under the weight of Donald Trump's ego, and I think that's going to have a huge effect in January.
And so, but as far as just like this idea of them staying home as some kind of solidarity with the claims that it was rigged, only a few percent need to do that for it to potentially make a difference, given how close it's expected to be.
Right, because the special elections, the special election on January 5th, the turnout is going to be by definition lower, right? It's a special election. And so the margins are going to be that much more important. So if they actually do manage to get like 1%, even just 1% of Georgia's turnout, Republican turnout to stay home, then that could be the margin of difference here.
I've been having not really an argument, but kind of a disagreement about strategy with some in my audience, where last week I said, listen, for 10 years on this program, I've been saying increase civic engagement. Voting is it's step one. It's only step one, but it is step one.
Right.
Increase turnout. Overall, the left does better with more turnout. And so I would not feel okay saying, hey, Republicans, you really should stay home. You really should boycott this thing, because I feel like at a higher level, it's not what I'm about. Now, some people in my audience wrote to me and they said, listen, David, if Democrats take the Senate and Kamala Harris becomes the tie-breaking vote, things will get done that would not otherwise get done. The country will be better off. Isn't there some greater good in just this one time encouraging Republicans not to vote, even if you have to lie to them about the rig stuff? I can't get behind that. Like I'm having a lot of trouble with that. What's your thought on this idea?
No. It's a great question, because I'm actually I'm senior advisor for Really American, and they are running some really provocative ads in Georgia, billboards particularly. They have billboards all over the state. That are basically encouraging Republicans to continue fighting each other, right? And in a way, if you're not careful, it could have a suppressive effect against Republicans, because if Republicans feel like they have a lot of infighting, they're more likely to stay home. I'm okay with that. I 100% understand where you come from, David, and I find myself struggling with that on a regular basis.
Well, let me clarify, Ben, just to make sure I know what you're saying. You're saying you're okay. I'm okay with them staying home. If they want to convince each other to stay home, that's great. I'm not going to say, you really should vote. Where I sort of draw the line is participating in the encouragement to stay home because it's rigged.
Well, we're participating in what my colleague at Really American calls a truth-telling campaign.
Okay.
Watch this spin.
Yep.
It was a great spin. So I'll give it to you. He said, all we're doing is telling the truth about what's going on in the Georgia Republican Party. I think the people of Georgia have the right to understand the divisions that are happening in the Republican Party. So we're calling what we're doing a truth-telling campaign. And I know, we could read between the lines.
Yeah.
We want to win Georgia, and then you guys could, people who disagree with me, not you particularly, but y'all can come after us afterwards. We're gonna win this race. And then we'll feel bad about what we did afterwards.
So you're confident about the two races?
I'm pretty bullish on it. I feel that if everything falls in place, we could pull out a miracle. It will be a miracle, right? It's not going to be easy, but I think all the elements are in place. And I think if everyone plays their cards right, we could get 2 seats. And I know that's a stretch, but I'm willing to go out on the limb there.
Let's talk a little bit about the incoming Biden administration. I said months ago, I will call it the way I see it. If I see Joe Biden pick people that I think are problematic, I will tell you. It won't mean that I think I should have voted for Trump instead. It will just mean I voted for the right person, but they made some selections I didn't like. Perfect. So far, the two that I am concerned about primarily are Neera Tanden
Absolutely.
and Lloyd Austin. And, back in 2017, I said when Jim Mattis was selected, guys, we have a rule about being out of the military 7 years. So what's the point of the rule if you can just get a congressional waiver and get around that? There's a reason that that rule is in place. The exact same waiver is going to be necessary for Lloyd Austin. And I would be a hypocrite if I didn't call it out. He was involved in some of the mishandling of the Iraq War in 2011 and in 2014. This is not a pick I love. And to me, it strikes me as identity diversification without solving the structural problems.
Right. Well, I mean, so there's always going to be, David, there's always going to be an element in the corporate Democratic wing that is more than happy to give us identity, because it is instantly celebrated that this is a black guy who's going to lead the Pentagon, right, with Lloyd Austin.
Yep.
But, we just take a break and breathe and look and say, oh, well, this is that guy. And so I think it's, that's our job. Our job is going to be to maneuver through the BS of them using identity as a shield. Like, I think identity politics matters. I want to make sure I say that I think identity politics matters because black people and all kind of identities suffer identity specific problems in this country. There are problems that black people go through simply because they are black, LGBTQIA, obviously, However, when the corporate Democrats use it as a shield against criticism, we have to be able to maneuver through that and still bring a solid critique against their corporatism and imperialism.
Right. The phrase I've used is I value identity because of the insight it gives us. But where I stop is whether it's used as either a shield or a cudgel or a mallet to beat people sort of over the head. And that's where the rational thinking seems to go out.
Right. Well, I mean, and I agree with you. I agree with you all the way to the point where I think that there are some situations in this country that require a mallet to the head. I think that there are some very stubborn situations in this country that are so intransigent and malignant, to be quite honest with you. Like racism is malignant in this country. And if we need to go straight head to head with it, then fine. But we have to be able to understand when it's time to recognize how identity politics, just like any other politics, are used against you for powerful people to continue getting their way and getting their agenda. And we just have to know when that's happening with identity.
Yeah. And interestingly, it's good you mentioned that, because oftentimes class politicking is also used in ways that, but it's just not identified as pernicious. And with the phrase, oh, identity politics is being used. You rarely hear that said about class politics, but it's used very frequently.
Yeah. And see, class politics is an identity politics that I get down with. I'm down with like 4 flat tires with class politics as well as racial politics. But I agree with you, right? It is, if you're not careful, there's an element of a class critique that itself can become a cudgel. It can become a bludgeoning tool. It can become a weaponized way to ignore logic and reason, right? So we just have to be careful that anything that we really believe in can be weaponized against us if we give it a free pass and we're not willing to critique it truthfully and in good faith.
So who do you like that Joe Biden has selected so far?
Nobody. No, I'm serious. I'm really trying to think of any. Cedric, I forget Cedric's last name, congressman who had that brilliant exchange with Matt Gaetz about his son. I can't think of Cedric's last name, but he's okay. I'm not excited about any of his picks. What I have decided to do with Joe Biden is to let him make his play. Let him make his play. I can't control who he picks. No matter how much commentary we give, we can't control who he picks. But we can decide what type of opponent we have in the White House. Is he an opponent that we have to oppose with all of our energy, or is he an opponent that we need to keep an eye on because he made some bad picks and we need to keep an eye on what they're going to do? I think he's going to fall into that latter category.
Yeah, I mean, I've said that I dug back into some of Janet Yellen's economic writing from the 90s, where she was like an academic economist. She's pretty brilliant. And I mean, it's like, listen, she's gonna run the Treasury, and she believes in monetary policy, like that we would expect that Joe Biden's going to pick somebody like that.
Yes.
But things like her fair wage hypothesis from 1990, which I would definitely check out if you've not read it.
Yeah,
very, very interesting stuff. She is quite brilliant. And at least I think she will not stand in the way. If Joe Biden can otherwise get consensus and political capital to get things done, I don't think she'll stand in the way of anything he campaigned on. Whether he'll do it is a different question.
Yeah, and I think that is the $1 million question, right? So what does Joe Biden really want to do, right? The rest of this is on the periphery. Right. He's going to do a lot of things because there's a lot of people in a lot of departments who have their own agendas, and he's going to filter through them and they'll get whatever their agenda is done. Right. Which is why I'm really leery about the possibility of Rahm Emanuel, because I just kind of have a feeling I know what this guy wants, and it's never been anything good for black people or poor people. That said, with everyone else Joe Biden is picking, I want to see what Joe Biden actually wants, because what he actually wants is what he's going to put his energy behind. David, I'm afraid that what he really wants is bipartisanship with the Republicans. I think his end all goal might be bipartisanship. And then that is somebody I have to take a pretty good stand against. But
yeah, that's completely naive.
I mean, that's just totally naive. We elected him, though. I'm still glad we elected him.
Of course. Yeah. No, but the idea that you're going to get things done with the help of this Republican Party, it seems like the height of naivete.
Yes. And I don't know if Joe Biden, I think possibly with Joe Biden, it could be sincere naivete. I think with people around him who always triangulate with Republicans, I think it is intentional because they probably identify with Republicans more than they do progressives. But with Joe Biden, I don't know. The jury is still out. I think he actually believes that bipartisanship is the greater good.
Yeah, we will. I think we'll know relatively quickly is the upside. I think by March 1st, we'll have a pretty good sense of whether he really believes that. Ben
Absolutely.
Dixon, the Benjamin Dixon Show. So you've got the audio podcast.
Yes.
You've got the Facebook and the YouTube channel, and you seem to have like a dozen ancillary shows that I regularly am catching streams of. So like what's the hub where people can, what's the best place?
I mean, you know what? They honestly can go to the YouTube channel right here on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube. Give us please, sir, can we have some more of your subscribers, David? Can we have some more of your subscribers,
You know,
please?
the beautiful thing about YouTube subscribers is like when Sam Cedar and I were having this fake war to 1 million.
Yeah.
It's not zero sum. It's not, you have one subscription and you either give it to Sam or to Ben or to David. You can generate subscriptions infinitely just by subscribing to more than one channel. So I always say, spread the wealth around.
Hey, man, I appreciate that. See, that's where I rock with David. And David, for everyone who doesn't know, David has been rocking with my show since I started my show. Like maybe 6 months after I started my show, David contacted me. So, man, I appreciate everything that you've done to help me on this journey.
My pleasure. And let's do it again very soon.
Sounds good. Take care, man.